recently there has been a noticeable shift in the approach of the Western countries to the war in Ukraine, as it is said directly more and more often that Ukraine must defeat Russia in this war, and also that this war may be protracted. Do you agree that such a shift takes place?
Well, Milan, as you know, the United States from the very beginning of this war has said that it needs to be a strategic defeat for Putin and his military, and that we believe that Ukraine could prevail. I think as Ukrainian soldiers continue to fight so bravely on the battlefield, as Ukrainian society supports them, as we see that Russia has already had to retreat from Kyiv, that there have been massive losses for Russian forces on the battlefield, and as we also see the horrible atrocities committed in Bucha, in Mariupol, in Kramatorsk, more and more countries are coming to the same conclusion that we came to very early in this war. And that's why you see the support for Ukraine increasing, the security coalition now up to 40 countries defending and supporting Ukraine. It's your bravery, it's your success.
United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said that Western countries will keep moving heaven and earth to support Ukraine. Does this mean that now there are no more barriers to provision of different military assistance to Ukraine, or are certain types of weapons still under an informal ban?
So there were never weapons under a ban. It was more a question of practicality, of being able to get certain kinds of weapons to Ukraine, ensuring that they could be used. I think as this war has shifted after you liberated Kyiv, and now we see the Russians focusing on the east, it's a different sort of weaponry that is needed, less of the javelins and more of the howitzers and the MLRS systems and the UAVs. So what we are trying to do in being good partners to you is to adjust what we send and ensure that we are finding what Ukraine needs wherever it is available and produced. So that's what you saw with Secretary Austin and Chairman Milley hosting this 30-plus country conference in Germany yesterday to try to find Ukraine what you need now for this part of the fight. And as I said, more and more countries are answering the call.
But what specific kind of deliveries can be expected in some nearest future? May we be talking about some fighter jets or maybe air defense systems that you have, like Patriots or something? Because Ukrainian authorities are asking about this specific types of weaponry.
So we are getting air defense systems into Ukraine. We are also supporting what you need in terms of repairing your own aircraft, etc. I will tell you that, and we are also starting to train Ukrainians who are able to come out to Germany, and the Poles are doing the same, and some of the Balts and the UK, on new weapon systems, NATO standard weapon systems. But things like a Patriot, it takes 6 months to train on a Patriot. So that's not the most efficient for this war, which has to be won now. What's much better is to help you repair the air defenses that you already have and get more air defenses in that Ukraine's military already knows how to use. Now, there are things like the howitzers, where we're almost out of Soviet ammunition. The Russians are too. So we are able to train Ukrainians now on NATO standard howitzers. That you can do in a matter of days. So that's more efficient in this context. So what's most important to us is to get in what you need now and get you trained on stuff that you can begin to use very, very quickly, not 6 months or a year from now.
And in general, the logic that we should not provide Ukraine with this or that type of assistance because it may provoke Putin to make some further aggressive steps. In your opinion, does this logic still make sense?
that was never the logic that we operated on, and I think more and more countries are coming to understand that Ukraine needs the weapons that the battle requires, and that all of us have a responsibility to help you with that.
In your opinion, will the outcome of this war be decided on the battlefield or at the table of negotiations?
Well, obviously, Milan, if Putin wanted to come with sincerity to the negotiating table at any minute of his choosing, including tonight, he could call a ceasefire and we could be at a sincere negotiating table. That would be the right and honorable and moral thing to do, or to withdraw completely. So it's very much in his hands. We would like to see this end in diplomacy, but if Putin is not willing to be sincere, and if he continues to insist on Ukraine's capitulation, which is where he has been, then Ukrainians are going to continue this fight, and we are going to continue to help you until the fight is won.
For how long this may happen? Do you agree that this war may last for years?
You know, we are seeing, even as Ukraine has fought incredibly bravely and has suffered losses of its own, we are seeing massive losses on the Russian side, killed and wounded. We are seeing their equipment shoot up. We're seeing them losing huge numbers of tanks and of advanced systems and of aviation. Weaponry that Putin can't replace because nobody is helping him with these things, and because he's out of Russian young people who are willing to fight in this awful, vicious, brutal, immoral war. So, you know, we believe that Ukraine can and will prevail, and we hope it happens sooner rather than later, which is why we're trying to get you what you need as quickly as we can.
A couple of last questions, if I may. President Biden has just asked Congress for an unprecedented multi-billion-dollar aid package for Ukraine. Will the United States somehow control the usage of this money here on the ground, in particular the money that will be used for humanitarian, economic, food assistance for Ukraine?
Well, Milan, as you know, we've already provided some $4 billion in weapons and more than $1 billion in budget support. The president just announced that he will ask Congress for another $33 billion. And we believe we will have the bipartisan support to get that money, because the American people stand with the people of Ukraine. That is, the request is for some $20 billion of the 33 for military and security support, and 8.5 for economic support. Our economic support, particularly the budget support, primarily comes to Ukraine through the World Bank, through the IMF, so that we can be sure it goes where it is needed for the Ukrainian people. And the humanitarian money largely goes through UN agencies and trusted Ukrainian humanitarian partners who we've worked with for many, many years. And that's how we are sure that it goes where the Ukrainian people need it, where the nation of Ukraine needs it, and not into pockets.
The Ukrainian government has outlined a certain range of security guarantees that it would like to see from its Western partners, in particular prompt arms supplies, sanctions against the aggressor, maybe even the dispatch of some military contingents. From this list, what is the United States ready to provide, and how soon will we get to know about the results of these ongoing negotiations? Are we talking about days or weeks or months?
I think we've already been very clear with President Zelensky. President Biden has, and Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken talked about this when they had the honor of being in Kyiv on Easter Sunday, that we are prepared to provide an ongoing level of high support, security assistance, training, intelligence, to ensure that when this war ends and going forward, Ukraine remains a very strong security country, so that Putin will have to think twice if he tries this again. We have also talked, as you mentioned, about the fact that if the Russians actually withdraw, one could measure out with their withdrawal some sanctions relief, but we'd also have to be willing to snap back those sanctions, reapply them if Putin came back or threatened to come back. And then there's obviously the question of whether one would need, Ukraine would want and would ask for some sort of international peacekeepers, et cetera, to monitor any kind of withdrawal agreement and to ensure security along the borders. So we are open to have a conversation about any and all of those things to ensure that when Ukraine wins this war, this never happens again.